Hi, my name's Marjorie. Last Thanksgiving, my mom leaned across the table, smiling, and whispered, "Pretend you lied about the assault, or you're out." I hadn't seen her in years, and that's what I came back to. They had already taken me out of the family photo, out of the will, out of their version of the truth. But nothing hurts like realizing your own mother chose his reputation over my reality. And when I stayed silent, they thought I was finished. But I didn't come back to be forgiven. I came back with proof. Want to know what happened when I dropped it in front of everyone? End of hook. Thanksgiving dinners have a sound, a hum, a slow, almost syrupy rhythm of silverware tapping china, kids giggling under their breath, chairs dragging just slightly. This year, the sound was still there, but I wasn't in it. I sat at the far end of the table, technically part of the gathering, but no longer part of the family. The house hadn't changed much. Same chandelier overhead, same yellow-tinted wallpaper curling at the edges. And yet, I felt like a stranger in my mother's home. 38, unmarried, quiet. I used to belong here. Now I felt like a guest who had overstayed her welcome years ago. People talked around me, not to me. And when they did look in my direction, it was with that smile. That one people give at funerals when they don't know what to say. I wasn't grieving, but I was being mourned, like the idea of me still made them uncomfortable. I glanced at my plate. The name card read +1. Everyone else had names, even the grandkids. I was a placeholder now. A footnote. Rod caught my eye first. He always did. He and Miriam were seated 2 spots from Delilah, close enough to hear her whispers, far enough to pretend they didn't. He raised his glass in some lazy toast about tradition, and the whole table clinked along. I didn't. A moment later, the waiter leaned over and said, "Oh, they moved your seat last minute. Wasn't on the plan." He meant well, but his voice hit like a punch, like my presence was an afterthought, or a problem. I nodded, smiled like it didn't matter. That's what they all wanted anyway. Delilah leaned toward me right then. Her pearls clicked as she shifted. Her perfume hit the air, sharp and familiar. She didn't look at me. "Pretend you lied about the assault," she said under her breath, "or you're out. Don't ruin this dinner." That's when the sound left the room. I didn't speak. Couldn't. My body froze, but my mind raced. My mother, my own mother, chose optics over her daughter's truth. Again. The napkin in my lap was blank. Everyone else had theirs embroidered. A small thing, but it landed. I looked around the table. No one else heard her. No one needed to. This wasn't for them. It was for me. A reminder, a warning, a test. I thought about standing, tossing the napkin into her lap, shouting what she just said, but I didn't. That would have made me the problem again, the hysterical one, the one who couldn't let things go. So I held that napkin tight in my palm, and I swallowed the scream rising in my throat. I had told the truth once, a long time ago. I remember the silence that followed, the way my mother stopped answering my calls, the way Miriam shifted, started defending Rod in half sentences. I remember Rod smiling, more confident with each gathering, more public with his proximity to Delilah. I remember being told, "Let it go for the family's sake." I remember wondering if I imagined it all. Maybe I overreacted. Maybe I didn't remember right. But no, what hurt wasn't being doubted. What hurt was being erased. Quietly, thoroughly. I considered walking out, pushing back my chair and leaving the room without saying a word. But as I scanned the faces, I realized no one would stop me. Not my childhood friend, cousin, not even Miriam. They'd let me disappear, easier that way. The wine glass in front of me was full, just like last year, untouched. I closed my eyes, took one slow breath. If I leave, they win. If I speak now, they'll call me unstable. Again, I folded the napkin. Clean. Precise. Slid it into my purse. Then I sat up straighter. I wasn't going to speak. Not tonight. Not yet. The toast was coming to a close. People raised their glasses, cheered, laughed. Rod grinned like he always did, leaned close to Miriam and whispered something. She glanced at me, smirked. She still thinks someone believes her, I heard her say. I smiled back. They think I'm broken. I think they're about to find out I'm not. They raised their glasses like nothing happened, like Delilah hadn't just threatened her own daughter under candlelight, like I wasn't sitting at the end of this long, gleaming table with no name in front of me, just a folded card marked +1. Might as well have read disposable. I stayed seated while others laughed and drank, watching, measuring the space between me and the people I used to trust. I noticed who avoided eye contact. Uncle James looked through me. Aunt Sylvia smiled too wide. Even the kids were coached. Don't ask questions. I've learned to read rooms the way you read eulogies. What's said, what's left out, what's whispered while the choir sings. Families don't lie with their mouths. They lie with who they seat near the center, who they hand the mic to. That's why, when Cousin Tom stood up with a glass of champagne and cleared his throat, I already knew what was coming. Tonight, he beamed, we honor the man who held this family together through everything. And there it was, Rod. He looked surprised, but not really, like someone who knew the punchline and still waited for the applause. Delilah handed him a plaque. For outstanding leadership, it read. I stared at the etching like it might catch fire. I didn't clap. I held my glass tighter and thought about how calm Rod had been the night I told the truth. How he smiled like he already knew no one would believe me. They're rewriting history, I whispered to myself, while I'm still breathing. The slideshow started after dessert. I barely looked up until my own face failed to appear. One by one, the screen glowed with family trips, holiday gatherings, backyard barbecues. Everyone got a moment, even second cousins from Oregon. But when it reached the year I launched the scholarship fund, I was gone. No speech, no picture, not a line of text. Then came the photo. Tahoe trip, summer of 2017. The last time I was in a family group shot before the truth burned it all down. But in the version they showed, I'd been cropped out. My shoulder still made the corner of the frame, just enough to mock me. Why isn't Aunt Marjorie in that one? A kid asked from across the table. No one answered. Delilah coughed and clicked the remote. Slide gone. I felt heat creep into my jaw, but not from embarrassment. This was war by deletion, and they were good at it. I leaned back in my chair, let the laughter around me settle into white noise, and tried to remember the last time I'd sat in this room before everything went quiet. Back then, I was still handed wine, still given a seat near Delilah. Back then, they called me the heart of the family. Now I was wallpaper. Rod stood up to thank everyone. His voice was calm, measured, like always. No arrogance, just enough charm to be reposted. We all go through hard seasons, he said, but grace brings us back. I watched Miriam during his speech. She was fidgeting, picking at her bracelet, shifting her weight, biting the corner of her lip. The tells of someone who knows too much and is trying not to know anything at all. That's when it clicked. Miriam wasn't just choosing silence. She was suffocating in it. I didn't call her out, not yet. Instead, I placed my wine glass next to the card labeled +1. Still full, still untouched. Then I reached into my bag and took out the napkin from earlier. The plain one, no embroidery, just white cotton, folded like a forgotten memory. I laid it on the table. I pulled out my phone and began taking notes, not out of panic, out of principle. Faces, phrases, who clapped, who didn't, who looked guilty when Rod smiled. I was building a file, Not for court, for clarity. You told me to pretend, I whispered into my glass. Fine. I'll pretend to be quiet. I stood to head to the restroom, needing air more than anything. As I walked past Miriam, she reached out and grabbed my wrist. You shouldn't have come back, she said, eyes sharp, voice low. I stopped, looked her in the face, tried to read her. Was that fear, a warning, or something else? I didn't sleep much after that night. I didn't expect to. The silence in this house, this mausoleum dressed as a home, doesn't lull you to sleep. It holds you hostage. So when the sky started to pale behind the curtains, I got up. The room they gave me used to be mine. Used to. Now it's more like storage with a bed shoved in. Cardboard boxes where a desk used to be. My books gone, replaced with Delilah's winter decor. It was as if the space had been reclaimed, exorcised of me. As if I'd never been a child here, never laughed or cried here. As if I'd been a guest all along. In the corner sat a box labeled College Years. I don't know why I opened it. Curiosity, maybe. Or maybe hope. Inside were a few half-torn notebooks, some photos with faded corners, and a yearbook missing its cover. Pages had been ripped, words scratched out. It wasn't just clutter, it was cleansing. I knelt down and pulled another drawer open. The old dresser creaked like it resented my hands. Beneath a stack of linens was a small leather-bound book, soft, worn edges, a familiar monogram, Delilah's journal. My first instinct was to shut the drawer and walk away. But my hands didn't move. I opened it. It didn't read like someone documenting a life. It read like someone documenting control. A line here. Marjorie needs structure. She spirals without it. Another. She's always had trouble keeping friends. Maybe it's her tone. And then. People wouldn't understand how difficult she's been. The misunderstanding only made her more dramatic. There it was. The word misunderstanding. Not abuse, not assault, just a glitch. Something inconvenient. I felt my chest tighten. My mother hadn't doubted me. She'd rewritten me. I sat there with that journal in my lap for a long while, staring at the ink, letting every word burn, not with fire, but with clarity. When I finally stood, I walked to the closet and found the old answering machine we used to fight over in high school. I don't know why I plugged it in. Habit, or maybe a need for something untouched. Most tapes were gone, but one stayed. The label read, Sunday, 8 p.m., Grandma. I pressed play. The recording clicked, hissed, and then, I know what you said, sweetheart. I believe you. I tried to talk to your mother, but she told me it would destroy everything. I'm sorry. That was it. That was the whole message, and it was more than anyone else in this family ever gave me. I sat on the floor and cried. Not for the hurt, not even for the betrayal, for the fact that someone believed me, and it still wasn't enough to change anything. Later, I opened the college box again. Under a stack of folded sweatshirts, I found a sealed envelope. My handwriting on the front, to Delilah. I had forgotten I ever wrote it. Inside was a letter I'd written years ago. Raw, trembling words, full of pleas. Why didn't you protect me? Why did you choose him over me? What did I do to deserve silence? I read every line, and I hated who I was when I wrote it, not because I lied, but because I begged. I didn't rip it up. I folded it, put it in my purse. It would go somewhere this time, not to Delilah's hands, but to someone who would read it and understand what happens when truth lives alone too long. I started collecting everything. Photos, the voicemail tape, pages from the journal, the image from the slideshow where my shoulder made the frame. I labeled files, backed them up, printed them in triplicate. Not to blow the place up, to prove I'd been here. To prove I remembered. To prove they did too, no matter how hard they tried to forget. I opened my laptop and began to type. They tried to rewrite my story, so I'll write it myself. The file name: Daughter, Disbelieved. I didn't post anything, not yet, but I felt anchored. I wasn't drifting anymore. A knock came, not soft, not loud, just deliberate. I closed the laptop, stood up. Delilah stood in the doorway, holding 2 mugs of coffee, her eyes unreadable. "I thought you might be up," she said, like we were old friends catching up. "We need to talk before you make another mistake." The invitation came in silence, slipped under my bedroom door like a bill no one wanted to hand over. Plain white paper, black ink. Guest brunch, Sunday noon, U+1. That was it. No name, no warmth, no pretense. I read it twice, then a third time. Maybe I missed something. I didn't. No Marjorie, no, "we hope to see you." Just a line meant for someone irrelevant, yet still expected to show up, eat, smile, and leave quietly. Even ghosts get called by name in this house. But I wasn't going for the eggs. I was going because they needed to see I wasn't invisible. Because I needed to see them see it. Sunday came too soon. I took a cab out to the country club, Charleston polished up with a price tag. White columns, trimmed hedges, valet parking that smelled like old money and secrets. At the front desk, I gave my name. The receptionist, young and brittle, scanned her list and blinked. "Oh, you're the +1. Right." I smiled, the kind you give when you're biting your tongue to keep from bleeding. "This is what exile looks like when it's well-dressed," I muttered to myself, and stepped in. The brunch buzzed around me, clinking glasses, polished laughter, chairs scraping against concrete. I took a seat at the farthest table, near the staff station. The view was decent. The message was not. Halfway through brunch, while I was stirring coffee I didn't want, Lyle appeared. Cousin Lyle, the family attorney, hair too neat, smile too tight, holding a brown envelope like it held apology, or maybe a trap. "Mom thought it'd be best if you heard this from me," he said, setting it in front of me. I opened it. It was an amendment, legal language, family trust, property deed. My name had been removed, just like that. Years ago, I'd signed paperwork about the Darnell property, a shared inheritance between siblings. Now the structure had shifted, a quiet maneuver. Delilah and Miriam had signed off on it 2 weeks earlier, claimed it was routine updates. I remembered the envelope they'd mailed, the one they said needed a signature just in case. I didn't read the fine print. Now I had no claim, no land, no legacy, and no name on the paper. The betrayal didn't knock this time. It walked in, sat down, poured itself coffee. I stood, nodded at Lyle like we'd finished some business transaction, walked to the bathroom and shut the door behind me. I didn't cry, not yet. I just looked at the woman in the mirror and didn't recognize her. They did it. They really did it. They stripped me from my own bloodline and signed it in ink. "You believed them again," I told my reflection. "You gave them another chance. That's on you." My therapist once said, "When people show you who they are, believe them the first time." I stared into that hollow version of myself, wondering when I started waiting for redemption from people who built their lives on denial. What if this is it? What if they actually erased me? I thought about deleting every file I'd saved. The recordings, the letters, the napkin. Just let it die. Let myself disappear like they wanted. But I didn't. Instead, I reached into my purse. Pulled out the napkin from that first night. The one with no embroidery, no initials. Just blank cotton. Still white, still mine. I unfolded it slowly, smoothing it across my lap. It wasn't just cloth. It was the only thing left in that house they hadn't touched, changed, renamed, or erased. This is not silence. This is strategy. I opened my phone and typed it down. Then I took a picture of the legal document, sent it to Caleb with the message, "Keep this." That was all. No context. He'd understand. I finished my coffee, stood up, nodded at the server who avoided looking me in the eye, walked out of the club without a word to anyone. Back in the lobby, I reached for my coat. The attendant handed me a different one, too large, tailored for someone else. But I didn't say anything right away. Something felt off. I checked the inside pocket, a folder, slim, yellowed at the corners. I opened it. There, in black ink, was my name, my signature. But it wasn't mine. They forged me. The house was asleep, but my head wouldn't let me rest. Lying there in that old guest bed, I couldn't stop replaying what I saw in that coat pocket. My name, my signature, but not mine. It was neat, controlled, not the kind of handwriting I ever used when I was angry or scared. Someone had written me into a lie. Again. The air in the room felt stale, like it had been sealed up since the last time someone bothered to care. I got up, slid into my slippers, grabbed my phone, and opened the door slowly. The hall was dim, quiet, the kind of quiet that knows what it's hiding. I didn't hesitate. I went straight for the office. The one I used to help keep organized back when Delilah called me responsible. Back before I became the embarrassment they couldn't scrub clean. The knob turned, but the drawer I needed was locked. Bottom cabinet, back right. That's where she always kept the stuff that mattered. I remembered that. I also remembered she never hid the key, because she never thought I'd come looking again. I didn't need a key. Letter opener did the job. Took some prying, but the lock gave way with a pop. Inside was a flash drive, old, cheap, red plastic casing. I knew it right away. I'd given it to her after the police interview. It held everything. Notes, emails, a voice memo I recorded the day it happened. Back then, she told me, "Let me hang on to this, in case it ever comes up again." Guess it came up. I plugged it into my laptop. Nothing. Empty folders. Titles like Archived and Review Later, all blank inside. Not even corrupted. Just wiped clean like it never held a thing. She didn't just erase files. She erased me. I yanked the drive out and stuffed it in my pocket, not because I thought I could recover it, but because she shouldn't get to keep it either. That morning, the knock came just after I changed out of pajamas. A package, no return address. Just a library sticker from Charleston Public Library. My name was written in block letters, all caps. No handwriting I recognized. Inside was a folded paper, an old library card, and taped to the inside, a micro SD. I plugged it into my laptop, expecting nothing. Then I heard it. My voice, younger, fragile, breathing heavy. I don't remember how it started exactly. I just remember it felt wrong. The way he looked at me, touched my arm. Then Caleb's voice. "It's okay, Marjorie. Just talk through it. I'm recording this so you don't forget how it felt. So no one makes you question it later." I stopped breathing. That day. That apartment. The little yellow blanket I had around my shoulders. I hadn't thought about it in years. Caleb had recorded that conversation. He never told me. Maybe I asked him to. Maybe I forgot. But there it was. Truth, unpolished, raw, unfiltered by memory or manipulation. I hit play again. "You don't have to go back tonight," he said. "You don't have to go back there if you don't feel safe." My voice cracked. What would they say? "They'll say whatever keeps them comfortable," he said. "But I'll remember what you say." I sat there in my old room, laptop on my lap, and cried. But this time, it wasn't grief. It was proof. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't exaggerating. I wasn't alone. I backed up the recording on 3 drives, uploaded it to cloud storage, and emailed Caleb. Got it? Thank you. For back then and for now. Then I opened a new email to myself. Subject line: Plan A, quiet retaliation. I started listing what I had. Slideshow photo, with my shoulder cropped out, Delilah's journal entries, Grandma's voicemail. The forged document. Caleb's recording. Not much, but enough. Enough to tell my story, to put the puzzle together. I didn't need revenge. I needed a record. Let them think I'm still quiet. As I walked back upstairs, the hallway stretched longer than it felt yesterday. Or maybe I just knew where I was going now. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Careful, you're not the only one with old recordings. My stomach clenched. They knew. They were watching. This wasn't just about hiding me anymore. It was war. I sat in the reading room with the door half shut behind me. The house buzzed faintly with Sunday prep. The clink of silver, quiet footsteps, forced conversation. But no one spoke to me. Not since breakfast. Not one word. My laptop rested on my knees. The audio file paused mid-sentence. Caleb's voice still hung in my ears like someone had just whispered it. I'd sent copies to every place that mattered. My lawyer, my own email, Caleb again. I wasn't stupid. The message Delilah had sent the night before still sat in my inbox. I hadn't replied. I didn't need to. They all kept smiling too wide, too long. There's a reason people like that smile like it hurts. It's not joy. It's fear of the silence breaking. I looked around the room and thought, this is how a lie lives, with napkins folded just right, with china polished to a mirror shine, with laughter that's rehearsed. Eventually, I stood. The lounge was full. Cousins on their second mimosas. Someone's kid hammering at the piano keys like it owed him something. Aunt Sylvia talking about her church's bake sale. I walked in slow. Rachel looked up. Looked away. Uncle Marcus locked eyes, then dropped them like they burned. Even Aunt Sylvia, full of her usual energy, suddenly had something very interesting to read on her phone. I stood near the coffee table, pretended to read a magazine, pressed record on my phone, let it run, just the hum of the room, the quiet before the truth. So many people knew, I muttered. Not one warned me, not complicity, collaboration. Then Miriam walked in. She wasn't composed, no earrings, no smile, just red eyes and a wrinkled sweater. She walked straight to me. I need to talk to you, she said, but it wasn't a request. I didn't move. She leaned in, voice tight. You have no idea what they threatened me with. I stood up. You let them threaten me for 10 years. I was pregnant, Marjorie. They said if I didn't back off, they'd take everything. His job, my savings, my future. I didn't choose him. I chose my child. The room went still. Someone dropped a fork. The piano stopped. She cried, right there in front of everyone. And I didn't hug her. I didn't tell her it was okay. I didn't say a word. I stepped back. Let them feel the weight of that silence. It wasn't mine to carry anymore. I turned to Aunt Sylvia. You remember that summer, don't you? She blinked, lips parted like she wanted to say something, but nothing came. She didn't deny it. I nodded. I'm not asking anymore. Let them rot in their restraint. I had what I needed. I went upstairs and opened my laptop. 3 letters, short, sharp. 1 to Delilah, 1 to Miriam, 1 to Rod. No threats, no begging, just truths they refused to say aloud. Then a new email. Subject: History, revised. I opened the folder labeled Marjorie's Voice, dragged in the evidence. The slideshow photo from that night I got cropped out. Delilah's journal, Grandma's voicemail, the forged doc, Caleb's recording. It was all there. I zipped the folder, saved it to a flash drive, planned to leave it at the brunch. They could open it after I was gone. They wanted silence. I'll give them echoes. I stepped out of the room, flash drive in hand, heading for the stairs. At the bottom of the hallway, near the foyer, a photo hung. It used to be flipped over. Now it faced out, a family picture. Christmas 2016. And there I was, not cropped, not shadowed. Delilah stood beside the frame, arms folded. You should have stayed silent, Marjorie. The garden looked like something out of a catalog. White tablecloths, floral centerpieces, waiters dressed like they had contracts. The laughter was a little too loud, too high-pitched, like it needed to be convincing. I sat alone, again, near the hedges. A corner seat, not forgotten, just avoided. It was always a choice. My eyes scanned the crowd, and I started taking inventory the way soldiers check their gear. Who arrived? Who didn't? Who hugged each other like last night hadn't happened? Who couldn't look at me for more than 2 seconds? Everyone spoke too politely, voices too sweet, like a veneer stretched thin over something that smelled. Miriam wasn't there. Not yet. Maybe not coming at all. I didn't blame her. I watched Rod laugh at something the pastor said. Delilah sipped from her champagne flute like the stem was a wand. No tension in her face, no remorse, just years of practice performing like nothing ever touched her. If they're going to perform civility, then I'll perform memory. I noticed the newsletter being passed around in sets of 3s, 1 per table, cream-colored, thick stock paper, bold font across the top. Darnell Legacy, honoring tradition. Of course, I flipped it open, eyes already tired. Rod's photo was on page 2, full-page spread. The one who held us together. The article thanked him for his steadfast presence in times of division. My name showed up once, tucked into a side column. Marjorie, once a gifted child, now living elsewhere. That was it. No mention of the scholarship fund. No mention of the years I poured into keeping the family from financial collapse. They didn't just delete me. They rewrote me. And they printed it. I looked up, jaw still, breath even. Not sadness, not anymore. Just the kind of fury that knows exactly what it has to do next. That's when a man from my old college walked over. I recognized him. Board member, nice enough. He smiled, handed me his copy of the newsletter. Didn't you used to manage this? He asked, pointing at the section about the fund. It says here Delilah and Miriam spearheaded the whole thing. I looked at him and nodded slowly. No. I created it. I ran it. Every dollar was mine before they turned it into theirs. He blinked, shifted, cleared his throat. Oh, huh. I must have misunderstood. He walked away like someone who had just stepped on a landmine and didn't want to check if it exploded. But it wasn't his words that stung. It was the way he looked at me, as if the newsletter was more real than the woman standing in front of him. Later, during dessert, Aunt Cheryl approached. She didn't speak right away, just slipped a small envelope onto my plate. She walked off before I opened it. Inside was a photo, Christmas 2016, the original, uncropped. I was dead center, arm wrapped around my niece, smile still intact. On the back, in her small handwriting, "This is the one I kept. They said the other looked better." I pressed the photo flat against the table. Didn't thank her. Didn't need to. The photo wasn't a gift. It was proof that someone, somewhere, remembered the version of me they tried to erase. I stood, picked up the manila envelopes I'd prepared, and walked to the main table. Delilah and Rod looked up mid-bite. I placed one in front of each of them. Rod first. His envelope contained a printed record of the scholarship transfer, how it was moved out of my name, dates, signatures, a paper trail with no place to hide. Delilah's had a copy of her own journal, the entry about me being too emotional, about the misunderstanding. Miriam's would be given later, in private. It held Caleb's recording. I looked at them both and said, "This isn't a confrontation, it's just a correction." No one moved. I turned and began to walk away. That's when Delilah stood, glass in hand, her voice rising just enough. "To family," she said loudly, "even those who confuse memory with fiction." Polite laughter echoed around the table. I didn't stop, but I heard Rod chuckle. Not the kind of laugh that comes from something funny, the kind that says, "We're still playing. They're not done, and neither am I." The garden out back had always been quieter than the front of the house. It caught the wind differently, made the chimes hanging off the willow sound like they came from somewhere older than any of us. I walked that path alone, same as I had so many times growing up, but this time felt different. The air wasn't thick with secrets anymore. It was just still, not peaceful, not yet, but still. Behind me, the brunch was wrapping up, chairs being stacked. Laughter still forced, but fainter now. I imagined the envelopes on the table. Unopened or opened, it didn't matter anymore. They weren't for them, they were for me. Delilah's toast still echoed in my head. To family, even those who confuse memory with fiction. The line was dressed up in charm, but the knife underneath was real. Still, I didn't regret it. It was over, but not undone. I found the bench under the willow tree and sat down, letting my fingers trail over the weather-worn wood. A few minutes passed in silence before I heard footsteps. Small ones. Ezra. She didn't say anything at first, just climbed up beside me like kids do when they don't need permission, just presence. Her legs swung back and forth, shoes scuffing the dirt. Then, softly, like it was nothing and everything all at once, she asked, "Kao, did they make you lie when you were younger?" I turned my head. Her face was calm, not scared, just honest. That question cracked something in me I didn't know was still closed. "They tried," I said. "I didn't." She nodded once, like that was all she needed. We sat together a long while, saying nothing. But it wasn't the kind of silence I'd been used to in this family. This one didn't hide. It healed. Later, as I packed my things, I realized something simple and painful. No one had apologized. Delilah retreated to her room. Rod never looked me in the eye again. Miriam sent a single text. "Thank you for not making it worse," whatever that meant. I kept waiting for a moment that never came. Now I know. Maybe I don't need it. I thought of something Oprah once said. Forgiveness is giving up the hope that the past could have been any different. I didn't cry because I was hurt. I cried because I finally understood I didn't need their repentance to walk away whole. I deleted the social post I'd drafted weeks ago, the one that spelled out everything in bullet points and timestamps, not because I'd forgiven them, because I didn't need to prove anything to anyone anymore. I walked back into the house quietly. No one saw me. Or maybe they did and chose not to. Either way, it was fine. I left the unedited photo from Aunt Cheryl under Miriam's door, slipped into a plastic sleeve. I placed the remaining envelopes on the dining table. Unopened or not, they were there. Then I sat at the kitchen counter and wrote one final note, in ink. "Delilah, I won't be rewriting your legacy, but I also won't let you rewrite mine. Marjorie." No signature flourish, just the truth. I didn't slam the front door on my way out, just closed it gently, like sealing a box that didn't need to be opened again. My ride was waiting at the end of the driveway. I got in without looking back until we hit the first bend in the road. When I did turn around, it wasn't for closure. It was to remember the house, not for what it had done to me, but for what I'd taken back from it. That place held my silence for too long. It could keep the echoes. I was taking my voice. The airport wasn't far. The sun was setting slow over the water, like it was in no hurry either. I watched it from the back seat, tired in a way that felt earned. I didn't know what came next. For the first time in a long time, that didn't scare me. Then my phone buzzed, a podcast notification. A new episode from Family Secrets just dropped. The daughter who wouldn't be erased. My stomach flipped. I hadn't sent it, but maybe someone else did.